A CEO refused to believe the girl standing before him was his daughter, until one encounter forced him to question everything he thought he knew. Morning light reflected off the glass facade of the towering office building as 6-year-old Lillian stepped inside, her small hand wrapped firmly around her mother's. The lobby seemed impossibly vast to her, filled with polished marble floors, quiet footsteps, and voices that echoed softly beneath high ceilings. She tilted her head upward, her dark hair falling across her shoulders as she watched elevators glide silently behind shining doors. Her bright blue eyes, so striking against her features, moved from one detail to another with open curiosity, yet beneath that curiosity lingered an awareness that this visit carried unusual importance. Children often sense tension without understanding its cause, and Lillian could feel it in the tightness of her mother's grip and the measured pace at which they walked. Megan Brooks had spent much of the morning steadying herself, rehearsing words she had imagined speaking for years and hoping that resolve would carry her through what awaited upstairs. Her brown hair was tied back simply, and her brown eyes revealed determination that came from necessity rather than confidence. Life had taught her resilience in quiet ways, through long workdays, difficult conversations, and the solitary responsibility of raising a child without explanation she could easily give. Today was not about revisiting the past for herself, it was about providing clarity for her daughter, whose questions had grown more thoughtful as she matured. Megan had promised honesty when the time felt right, and now that promise guided her steps. The elevator ride passed in silence broken only by the soft hum of machinery, and Lillian watched the numbers climb with fascination, occasionally glancing toward her mother for reassurance. Megan offered a faint smile, though her thoughts moved elsewhere, revisiting memories she had long kept contained. She remembered earlier years when uncertainty shaped her decisions and when reaching out had brought no response, yet she refused to allow those recollections to define her presence now. Instead, she focused on the present moment, determined to meet whatever reaction awaited with composure shaped by experience rather than expectation. When the doors opened, they stepped into a corridor lined with glass and understated elegance, and a receptionist greeted them with professional courtesy before guiding them toward an expansive office at the far end. The environment reflected precision and authority, and Megan recognized in its design the personality of the man they had come to see. Daniel Reed had built his career upon discipline and foresight, rising to leadership through determination that few questioned, and his reputation suggested a man accustomed to certainty. He stood near a wide desk as they entered, his dark hair neat, and his blue eyes assessing them with restrained curiosity that bordered on skepticism. Lillian observed him quietly, studying his posture and expression with innocent directness that contrasted sharply with the guarded atmosphere. She did not yet understand his significance, only that this was someone her mother had spoken about in careful tones. Megan greeted him calmly, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment, and she introduced Lillian with clarity that carried both pride and vulnerability. Daniel listened without interruption, though his expression revealed disbelief shaped by habit and logic rather than emotion. His response came measured and distant, suggesting the need for verification before acknowledgement, and the distance within his tone created tension that settled heavily in the room. Throughout the exchange, Lillian remained attentive, her gaze moving between the adults as she attempted to interpret meaning beyond the words she heard. She sensed hesitation and confusion, yet she showed neither fear nor discomfort, instead standing with quiet patience that reflected trust in her mother's presence. Megan responded to Daniel's skepticism without confrontation, presenting facts and requesting fairness rather than acceptance, and her composure demonstrated strength developed through years of independence. The conversation ended without resolution, yet it marked the beginning of something unavoidable, an intersection of past decisions and present truths that neither could ignore. As they left the office, Megan felt both relief and uncertainty, aware that the outcome remained undetermined yet encouraged by having taken the step she had once delayed. Lillian walked beside her thoughtfully, glancing back once before the elevator doors closed, as though memorizing the image she had encountered. Neither fully understood the extent to which this meeting would shape their lives, but within that moment lay the quiet opening of a story defined by questions, resilience, and the unfolding power of truth that would reveal itself only with time. The hours after leaving the office felt unusually heavy, as though silence itself carried weight that neither Megan nor Lillian could easily set aside. The city outside moved with its usual urgency, traffic threading through intersections and pedestrians continuing their routines, yet Megan experienced everything through a distant awareness, her thoughts replaying the meeting in careful detail. She had expected skepticism, yet hearing it expressed so calmly and without emotion had stirred something deeper than disappointment. It was not anger she carried as she guided Lillian through the busy streets, but a quiet determination strengthened by years of self-reliance, reminding her that the truth required patience as much as courage. Lillian sensed her mother's distraction, and although she lacked the vocabulary to articulate complex observations, she remained attentive to subtle cues. Sitting beside Megan on the bus ride home, she watched reflections slide across the windows, occasionally turning to ask gentle questions about the man they had met. Megan answered thoughtfully, careful to balance honesty with reassurance, explaining that the situation required time and that answers might not arrive immediately. Lillian accepted this with a maturity that surprised Megan, nodding quietly before returning her attention to the passing scenery, processing the encounter through her own developing understanding of the world. Meanwhile, Daniel remained in his office, though his focus on routine responsibilities faltered in ways unfamiliar to him. After Megan and Lillian departed, he found himself standing motionless for several moments, the impression of their presence lingering within the room. He attempted to resume work, opening documents and reviewing data, yet his concentration fractured repeatedly as memory replayed fragments of conversation and visual details he could not dismiss. The girl's eyes, unmistakably bright and calm, resurfaced in his thoughts with unsettling persistence, challenging the certainty he preferred to maintain. Rather than ignore the disturbance entirely, he contacted his legal advisor and initiated arrangements for a formal paternity test, seeking resolution through procedure rather than speculation. Days passed before the testing could be completed, and during that time Megan navigated routine life with measured patience. She maintained her work schedule, prepared meals, and ensured Lillian's days remained grounded in familiarity, recognizing that stability would ease whatever outcome lay ahead. Though anticipation lingered beneath her composure, she avoided dwelling on possibilities, focusing instead on providing reassurance and continuity for her daughter. Lillian adapted with natural resilience, occasionally mentioning Daniel with curiosity yet otherwise continuing her studies and play as though life had not shifted around her. For Daniel, however, waiting introduced unfamiliar introspection. He had structured his life around decisiveness and clarity, and uncertainty unsettled him more than he cared to admit. In quiet moments, he questioned not only the validity of Megan's claim but also his own reaction to it, wondering whether dismissal had come too quickly. He reviewed past timelines and memories, searching for overlooked details, and his thoughts drifted toward scenarios he had never considered. Though he remained composed outwardly, internally he experienced the first subtle shifts in perspective that come when certainty begins to yield to possibility. When the day of testing arrived, the meeting unfolded with professional efficiency, devoid of emotional confrontation, yet tension remained palpable beneath formalities. Megan approached the process with calm resolve, ensuring Lillian felt at ease through gentle reassurance, and Daniel maintained courteous distance that reflected both restraint and anticipation. The procedure concluded quickly, leaving all parties with nothing to do but await results, and the absence of immediate answers amplified the significance of the moment. Each returned to their separate routines carrying unspoken thoughts, aware that resolution would soon arrive. That evening, Megan sat beside Lillian as she prepared for sleep, reflecting quietly on the path that had brought them to this point. She felt neither fear nor regret, only readiness to face whatever truth emerged, trusting in the strength she had cultivated over years of independence. Across the city, Daniel looked out over illuminated streets from his office window, contemplating outcomes with a seriousness he rarely allowed himself. Both knew that the next chapter of their lives hinged upon information yet to be revealed, and within that shared anticipation existed a quiet recognition that the course of their futures was shifting in ways either had fully anticipated. The waiting period stretched far longer in perception than in reality, and the absence of immediate answers created a tension that settled quietly into the routines of each person involved. Megan approached the days with deliberate steadiness, ensuring that nothing in Lillian's life felt unsettled or uncertain. Mornings began with the same familiar rituals: breakfast prepared with care, school preparations handled with calm encouragement, and conversations that avoided speculation about outcomes. She believed that shielding her daughter from anticipation would preserve her sense of security, and she devoted herself to maintaining warmth and normalcy in their home despite the thoughts she carried privately. Late at night, however, when silence filled the apartment and responsibilities paused, Megan allowed herself reflection, considering how confirmation or denial might reshape their future. Her emotions moved between resolve and apprehension, yet beneath both lay an unwavering commitment to honesty and protection. Lillian processed the experience differently, guided by curiosity and imagination rather than adult anxieties. She spoke occasionally about the office they had visited, describing its height and brightness with fascination, and wondered aloud whether the man they met might one day tell her stories about his work. Megan listened patiently, answering gently without encouraging assumptions, and she recognized in her daughter's openness a quiet resilience. Children adapt to uncertainty through trust, and Lillian's trust rested fully in the assurance that her mother would guide her regardless of circumstance. This confidence strengthened Megan's determination, reminding her that courage extended beyond confrontation into the everyday nurturing of stability. Across the city, Daniel's perspective evolved through introspection he had not anticipated. Though he remained engaged in professional obligations, he noticed his attention drifting toward personal considerations that once seemed irrelevant. Meetings and negotiations continued with their usual precision, yet moments of pause revealed thoughts returning to Megan's composure and Lillian's calm gaze. He began to examine memories more thoroughly, reconstructing timelines and conversations from years prior, and he realized that certainty had often replaced inquiry in his past decisions. Rather than dismiss these reflections, he permitted them to remain, acknowledging that outcomes might require acceptance rather than control. His interactions with colleagues subtly reflected this shift, as he found himself more observant and contemplative, occasionally withdrawing from discussions to consider broader implications beyond immediate results. Evenings became opportunities for quiet evaluation, and he spent time reviewing documentation and communication records related to earlier chapters of his life, searching for clarity not only about events but about his own responses to them. Though he maintained outward composure, internally he recognized the emergence of perspective that valued understanding alongside achievement. When the notification finally arrived indicating that results were available, its simplicity contrasted sharply with the magnitude of its significance. Megan received the message while completing routine tasks, and she paused briefly before opening it, drawing steady breath as she prepared to confront certainty. Reading the confirmation brought neither dramatic reaction nor visible upheaval, only a quiet stillness that settled into acceptance. She absorbed the information fully before sharing it with Lillian in measured language appropriate to her age, explaining that answers had been found and that they would soon meet Daniel again. Lillian responded with attentive calm, her understanding shaped more by tone than detail, and she embraced the news as a continuation rather than disruption. Daniel received the same confirmation within his office, and though he had anticipated various possibilities, seeing the truth expressed without ambiguity stirred reflection deeper than surprise. He read the results several times, allowing their implications to unfold gradually, and he recognized that the outcome required acknowledgement of responsibility he could no longer postpone. Rather than reacting impulsively, he scheduled a meeting, approaching the next step with intention guided by both practicality and emerging awareness of emotional significance. In that moment he understood that verification had resolved uncertainty, yet it had also opened a path demanding engagement far beyond procedural closure. As evening settled over the city, Megan and Lillian prepared quietly for what lay ahead, their home filled with calm anticipation shaped by trust rather than fear. Daniel remained within his office longer than usual, contemplating how acceptance might redefine priorities he had long considered fixed. Though they stood in separate places, their thoughts aligned toward the future, each aware that confirmation marked not an ending but the beginning of transformation guided by truth, choice, and the evolving bonds that awaited them. When Megan returned to Daniel's office after the results had been confirmed, the atmosphere felt different from their first meeting, though the surroundings remained unchanged. The building's polished surfaces and quiet professionalism still reflected authority and control, yet her perception of the space had shifted now that uncertainty had been replaced by truth. Lillian walked beside her with the same curiosity as before, but this time she carried a subtle awareness that something important had already been decided. Megan's composure masked the significance of the moment, and as she entered the office she prepared herself not only for conversation but for whatever emotional response might follow. Daniel greeted them without the guarded detachment that had defined his earlier manner. His posture remained composed, yet his expression conveyed thoughtfulness shaped by reflection rather than skepticism. He acknowledged the results openly, expressing recognition of what they meant and offering apology for his initial dismissal. The words were deliberate and measured, not dramatic, but sincere enough to create a shift in tone that filled the room with cautious openness. Megan accepted his acknowledgement calmly, neither emphasizing the past nor diminishing its impact, and she focused instead on establishing dialogue grounded in present responsibility. Lillian observed the exchange with attentive silence, sensing the change in atmosphere even if she did not fully grasp its context. Daniel addressed her directly after a moment, speaking with careful warmth and asking simple questions about her interests and experiences. She responded with natural ease, describing school activities and favorite stories, and her openness created a bridge between unfamiliarity and connection. As he listened, Daniel experienced a realization not merely intellectual but emotional, recognizing in her voice and expressions an undeniable link to himself that transcended documentation. Their discussion extended beyond acknowledgement of parentage into practical considerations, including how future contact might unfold and what pace would best respect Lillian's comfort. Megan emphasized stability and gradual familiarity, ensuring that any involvement would prioritize emotional well-being rather than abrupt change. Daniel agreed readily, demonstrating willingness to adapt his expectations and allowing her perspective to guide early decisions. This cooperative exchange fostered mutual respect, establishing a foundation for interaction built upon trust rather than obligation. During the meeting, an additional dimension emerged when Daniel disclosed a personal matter he had kept private until then. He explained that he had recently been managing a health condition requiring careful monitoring, and that genetic compatibility among relatives might influence future treatment options. He shared this information not as a demand but as transparency, acknowledging its relevance while expressing commitment to approach any related decisions with sensitivity. Megan listened attentively, absorbing the complexity of the revelation, and though concern appeared in her expression, she maintained composure as they discussed possibilities and boundaries. Lillian remained unaware of the medical implications, yet her presence within the conversation underscored how unexpectedly their lives had intertwined. By the time the meeting concluded, a sense of cautious optimism replaced earlier tension, and arrangements were made for continued contact through shared activities designed to nurture familiarity. Megan and Lillian departed with reassurance shaped by clarity rather than assumption, and Daniel remained in his office reflecting upon how profoundly his perspective had shifted since their first encounter. He recognized that acknowledgement alone marked only the beginning of responsibility, and he prepared to engage with sincerity rather than distance as the relationship developed. That evening, Megan spoke quietly with Lillian about the meeting, emphasizing that connection would grow over time and encouraging her to share feelings openly as experiences unfolded. Lillian responded thoughtfully, expressing curiosity and tentative excitement, and Megan recognized in her daughter's words the beginning of a bond forming gradually. Across the city, Daniel contemplated the future with seriousness and anticipation, aware that life had presented him with opportunity not only to accept truth but to participate actively in shaping what followed. The first weeks after their renewed connection unfolded with careful deliberation, as both Megan and Daniel understood that trust and familiarity could not be hurried into existence. They agreed to begin with simple meetings in environments where Lillian would feel comfortable, and their initial gatherings took place in public parks and quiet cafes that offered warmth without pressure. Megan watched attentively as Daniel approached these encounters with respectful patience, allowing Lillian to lead conversations rather than directing them, and his willingness to listen rather than instruct gradually eased the tension she had carried. He asked about her school, her favorite books, and the games she enjoyed, and he responded to her answers with genuine interest, learning to navigate the balance between curiosity and sensitivity. Lillian's natural openness shaped these interactions in unexpected ways, and she began to anticipate their meetings with excitement that revealed itself through questions and animated storytelling. She showed Daniel drawings she had made and explained her imaginative ideas with confidence, and he listened with attentiveness that strengthened her sense of importance. Megan noticed the subtle shift in their dynamic as familiarity replaced awkwardness, and she recognized that connection often grows from small moments of consistency rather than dramatic declarations. Through shared laughter and conversation, the three of them experienced the early formation of something that neither obligation nor expectation could have created alone. Daniel found himself adjusting his routines to accommodate this emerging role, and he approached these changes with an attentiveness that surprised even himself. He rearranged meetings, shortened travel commitments, and allowed his professional schedule to reflect priorities he had once dismissed as secondary. The transformation was not merely logistical, it carried emotional significance as he confronted experiences entirely outside his previous understanding of fulfillment. Watching Lillian explore the world with curiosity and enthusiasm awakened reflections about time lost, yet rather than dwelling on regret, he focused on participation in the present. Megan observed these adjustments carefully, acknowledging their sincerity while ensuring that her daughter's well-being remained the guiding principle of every decision. Their relationship continued to deepen through varied experiences designed to nurture comfort and understanding. Visits to museums and outdoor excursions offered opportunities for shared discovery, and Daniel embraced these moments as chances to engage rather than observe from a distance. He encouraged Lillian's questions, guiding her through exhibits and listening to her interpretations, and their conversations developed warmth that felt increasingly natural. Megan participated alongside them, contributing insights and reinforcing stability, and the cooperation among them demonstrated a growing partnership rooted in communication and mutual respect. Amid these positive developments, Daniel remained transparent about the medical concerns he had previously disclosed, and periodic consultations with specialists introduced discussions about potential testing that might involve genetic compatibility. Megan approached these conversations thoughtfully, ensuring that any involvement would be handled responsibly and without placing emotional weight upon Lillian. Daniel respected her perspective fully, emphasizing that no action would occur without careful consideration, and their shared commitment to safeguarding the child's comfort reinforced the trust that had begun to form. These discussions, though serious, also strengthened their ability to navigate complex matters collaboratively. As the season progressed, their interactions extended beyond structured meetings into more relaxed routines that included shared meals and informal visits, and these ordinary experiences carried significance equal to larger events. Megan allowed herself cautious optimism as she observed Daniel's consistency, and she acknowledged privately that the relationship evolving between him and Lillian reflected authenticity rather than obligation. Daniel, in turn, experienced fulfillment in moments of simplicity, recognizing that connection enriched his life in ways achievement alone never had. Lillian embraced the expanding presence of both parents with ease, her laughter and curiosity filling spaces once defined by uncertainty. Through patience, respect, and openness, this period became one of steady transformation, establishing bonds that grew stronger through repetition and sincerity. Each meeting reinforced understanding that family connections, whether newly discovered or long nurtured, require attentiveness and humility to flourish. Megan, Daniel, and Lillian moved forward together with awareness that challenges might still arise, yet they carried confidence shaped by the trust they were building, step by careful step, within a shared commitment to honesty and care. The steady rhythm they had begun to establish did not eliminate uncertainty, yet it created enough stability for deeper conversations and more meaningful decisions to unfold. As Daniel continued spending time with Megan and Lillian, the emotional distance that once defined their interactions gradually faded, replaced by a sense of shared responsibility and growing familiarity. He no longer approached visits with careful formality, and instead he moved through them with genuine ease, learning to anticipate Lillian's questions and adapting naturally to her curiosity. Megan noticed these changes with quiet attentiveness, recognizing the sincerity behind them while remaining mindful that true trust developed through consistency rather than intention alone. The subject of Daniel's health began to re-enter their discussions with increasing seriousness as medical evaluations progressed. He had undergone additional examinations that clarified the complexity of his condition, and specialists explained that genetic testing among close relatives could significantly influence future treatment options. Daniel presented this information with transparency, ensuring that Megan understood every detail without pressure or urgency. He emphasized that Lillian's well-being and comfort would remain the priority, and that participation would only occur if she felt at ease and fully supported. Megan listened carefully, balancing concern for Daniel with her instinct to protect her daughter, and she agreed to explore the process gradually and with sensitivity. When the topic was explained to Lillian in simple, reassuring language, she approached it with thoughtful curiosity rather than fear. Megan described the situation gently, focusing on the idea of helping someone she had come to know better, and Daniel reinforced this by emphasizing that her choice mattered and that no expectation existed. Lillian considered the conversation with seriousness beyond her years, asking questions that revealed both empathy and innocence, and she ultimately agreed to participate in the testing with calm confidence. Her response moved Daniel deeply, reminding him how naturally compassion could emerge when nurtured in an environment of trust. The medical procedures themselves unfolded with careful professionalism, and Megan remained beside Lillian throughout each step, providing reassurance that transformed unfamiliar surroundings into manageable experiences. Daniel attended when possible, maintaining presence that communicated gratitude rather than dependency, and the process strengthened their collective sense of unity. Though waiting for results introduced renewed anticipation, the emotional tone differed from earlier uncertainties, shaped now by collaboration rather than isolation. Each of them understood that whatever the outcome might be, they had approached the situation together with openness and respect. During this period, Daniel's reflections deepened, and he began to confront aspects of his past decisions with greater honesty. Observing Lillian's kindness and Megan's resilience prompted introspection about priorities he had once overlooked, and he recognized that personal fulfillment extended far beyond professional achievement. He expressed these realizations openly in conversations with Megan, acknowledging the value of the bond developing between them and the perspective it brought to his life. Megan responded with thoughtful understanding, appreciating his willingness to grow while maintaining her own independence and strength, and their dialogue reinforced mutual respect that continued to shape their partnership. When the results arrived indicating compatibility that could support effective treatment, relief spread quietly yet profoundly through all of them. Plans for medical procedures were arranged with care, and Lillian's involvement remained minimal and safe, guided by expert oversight. Daniel underwent treatment with determination, sustained emotionally by the knowledge that connection rather than circumstance had enabled opportunity. Megan provided support through steady encouragement, and Lillian offered simple gestures of comfort that carried immense meaning, reinforcing the depth of their bond. Recovery unfolded gradually, marked by patience and reflection, and as Daniel regained strength, he experienced appreciation for life reshaped by vulnerability and connection. He expressed gratitude openly, not only for the medical outcome but for the presence of Megan and Lillian within his life, recognizing that their influence extended far beyond treatment itself. Megan observed this transformation with quiet acknowledgement, and Lillian embraced the renewed energy he brought to their interactions with enthusiasm. Through shared resilience and cooperation, they emerged from this chapter strengthened, aware that adversity had deepened their connection and illuminated the significance of family built through choice, understanding, and care. Recovery brought with it more than physical strength for Daniel. It reshaped his understanding of how he wished to live and what he valued most in the years ahead. The experience of vulnerability had stripped away illusions of invincibility he had carried for decades, and returning to his office after weeks of treatment felt different from the confident routine he once embraced. The familiar desk, the ordered documents, and the steady pace of professional obligations remained unchanged, yet his perception of them had shifted. He approached responsibilities with renewed focus but without the urgency that once consumed him, recognizing that success held little meaning without the relationships he had begun to rebuild. Megan observed this transformation gradually through their continued interactions, noticing how Daniel's demeanor had softened and how his attention extended beyond logistics into genuine concern for emotional well-being. He asked about Lillian's school progress, celebrated her accomplishments, and sought opportunities to encourage her interests with patience that reflected authentic involvement rather than obligation. Megan appreciated these efforts, though she maintained the balance she had cultivated for years, ensuring that stability remained rooted in mutual respect rather than dependency. Their conversations evolved naturally, touching on topics both practical and personal, and trust grew from shared experiences rather than assumptions. Lillian flourished in this environment, her confidence expanding as she navigated the presence of both parents within her life. She began including Daniel more openly in her thoughts and daily stories, and her laughter during their outings reflected a comfort that had once been tentative. He listened attentively to her imaginative explanations of school projects and dreams for the future, offering guidance while encouraging independence. In turn, she responded with affection that revealed itself through simple gestures, and these moments carried profound meaning for Daniel, affirming the connection he had come to cherish. During this period, an unexpected revelation surfaced that deepened their understanding of the past. While reviewing archival communication within his company as part of internal restructuring, Daniel discovered records suggesting interference with messages sent years earlier by Megan. Further inquiry revealed that a former administrative employee, acting out of misplaced loyalty and fear of controversy, had deliberately filtered or concealed correspondence intended for him. The realization struck with profound weight, as it suggested that opportunities for connection had existed but had been obstructed without his knowledge. He shared this discovery with Megan carefully, acknowledging the complexity of its implications and expressing regret for time lost through circumstances beyond their awareness. Megan received the information with thoughtful composure, her reaction guided less by anger than by reflection. While the revelation did not erase years of independence she had navigated alone, it offered perspective that softened certain questions she had carried quietly. They discussed the matter openly, recognizing that dwelling on resentment would not restore the past, and instead chose to focus on the present and future they were shaping together. This shared resolution reinforced mutual respect and demonstrated maturity rooted in understanding rather than blame. As life continued forward, Daniel took deliberate steps to ensure his professional environment reflected values he now prioritized, implementing clearer communication structures and emphasizing accountability within leadership. These changes stemmed not only from organizational necessity but from personal conviction shaped by his experience. Megan admired his willingness to evolve, and Lillian remained blissfully unaware of complexities surrounding their history, instead enjoying the warmth of family moments that defined her world. Evenings often found them gathered in simple companionship, sharing meals or discussing plans that ranged from academic goals to recreational trips, and within these exchanges existed a sense of belonging that none had anticipated years earlier. Daniel's presence no longer felt tentative, Megan's trust grew through continued consistency, and Lillian embraced the harmony surrounding her with natural joy. Through honesty, patience, and willingness to grow beyond past limitations, they strengthened bonds capable of enduring future challenges, demonstrating how understanding and reconciliation can transform lives shaped once by uncertainty into ones defined by connection and hope. Time continued to move forward with a quiet steadiness, and the life they were shaping together began to feel natural rather than newly formed. What once required conscious effort gradually transformed into routine, and their interactions carried warmth shaped by familiarity and mutual understanding. Daniel's presence in Megan and Lillian's lives no longer felt tentative or conditional. It had become integrated into daily expectations. He attended school events, listened attentively to Lillian's growing interests, and offered encouragement that reflected both pride and care. Megan observed these moments with quiet satisfaction, recognizing that stability now existed not because of obligation but because of genuine commitment nurtured over time. Lillian's confidence flourished within this environment, and her personality revealed itself through curiosity, creativity, and emotional sensitivity that connected easily with those around her. She shared her aspirations with openness, speaking about future ambitions with imaginative certainty, and both Megan and Daniel responded with encouragement that balanced realism and optimism. Their conversations often extended beyond immediate concerns into thoughtful exploration of values and goals, allowing Lillian to develop perspectives shaped by guidance rather than instruction. Daniel valued these exchanges deeply, finding meaning in participation that contrasted with earlier years of emotional distance, and he embraced the opportunity to influence her growth through attentive presence. Megan's relationship with Daniel matured alongside these developments, defined by collaboration and mutual respect that transcended their earlier uncertainties. They navigated decisions regarding education, travel, and long-term planning with transparency, ensuring that each voice carried equal importance. While independence remained central to Megan's identity, she acknowledged the strength found in partnership grounded in trust, and their shared responsibility reinforced connection that felt both balanced and sincere. Daniel, in turn, respected her resilience and insight, recognizing the strength she had demonstrated long before their reunion, and he ensured that appreciation for her efforts remained expressed through actions as well as words. Opportunities for shared experiences expanded as stability allowed them to plan beyond immediate responsibilities, and they traveled together to places that inspired curiosity and reflection. These journeys provided moments of discovery that strengthened their bond, and Lillian embraced each new environment with enthusiasm that brought joy to both adults. Whether exploring museums, natural landscapes, or cultural events, they approached these experiences as opportunities for learning and connection rather than distraction, and the memories created became lasting symbols of their unity. Within Daniel's professional life, his transformation continued to influence decisions and priorities, leading him to establish initiatives supporting families and child development programs inspired by his own experiences. He engaged in these efforts sincerely, motivated by gratitude rather than recognition, and Megan supported these endeavors with thoughtful perspective. Lillian watched with admiration, developing awareness of compassion and responsibility through observation rather than instruction, and these lessons contributed quietly to her evolving character. Even as their present unfolded harmoniously, moments of reflection occasionally drew their thoughts toward the past, acknowledging the unlikely path that had brought them together. These reflections were no longer marked by pain but by appreciation for growth achieved through patience and understanding. Daniel expressed gratitude for the chance to participate in Lillian's life. Megan recognized the strength found in forgiveness, and Lillian absorbed these emotional undercurrents with intuitive sensitivity, understanding that love and trust had shaped her world. As evening light settled gently through the windows of their home one day, the three of them gathered in shared conversation, and Megan felt a quiet certainty that fulfillment often arises not from perfect beginnings but from perseverance and openness to change. Daniel regarded them with calm contentment, aware that his life had gained depth beyond anything he once pursued, and Lillian laughed freely, embodying the joy that unified them. In that moment, their story reflected harmony built through resilience, demonstrating how acceptance and dedication can transform lives into something enduring, meaningful, and profoundly hopeful. Years passed with a quiet sense of continuity, and the bond between Megan, Daniel, and Lillian deepened in ways that no longer required deliberate effort. What had once been fragile and uncertain had matured into something steady and enduring, and their home reflected this evolution through small but meaningful details. Photographs marked milestones and shared journeys, laughter filled evenings without reservation, and conversation flowed easily between them with familiarity shaped by trust. Megan often paused during ordinary moments to reflect on how profoundly life had changed, recognizing that resilience and patience had allowed her to build something far richer than she had once imagined possible. Lillian grew into a thoughtful and confident young person, her curiosity transforming into ambition guided by both creativity and empathy. She pursued her studies with enthusiasm, encouraged by Daniel's support and Megan's steady guidance, and she approached challenges with determination that reflected the influence of both parents. Her bond with Daniel strengthened naturally over time, evolving from cautious familiarity into affection rooted in shared experience, and she included him in her successes and concerns with openness that affirmed his place in her life. Megan observed this connection with pride, appreciating how the presence of understanding and care had shaped Lillian's sense of belonging and self-worth. Daniel's own transformation remained evident as he continued balancing professional responsibilities with personal priorities shaped by experience. Success within his career no longer existed as an isolated pursuit, and he integrated his values into decisions affecting both business and community initiatives. He remained attentive to the needs of his family, ensuring his presence during meaningful moments, and he found satisfaction in supporting Lillian's aspirations with encouragement rather than expectation. Megan and Daniel's relationship reflected partnership built through communication and respect, and they navigated life together with a sense of equality grounded in shared purpose rather than obligation. Occasionally, they revisited memories of the past not as sources of regret, but as reminders of growth achieved through perseverance. Conversations about those early encounters revealed perspective that allowed them to appreciate the unpredictable nature of life's course, and they recognized that understanding often emerges gradually rather than immediately. Lillian listened with thoughtful curiosity, absorbing lessons about resilience, forgiveness, and the importance of seeking truth, and these reflections strengthened the unity among them. Their willingness to acknowledge complexity without resentment ensured that their shared history served as foundation rather than burden. One evening, gathered together after a day marked by small accomplishments and quiet joy, they reflected on how chance and courage had intersected to reshape their lives. Megan spoke about the strength found in standing firm when uncertainty prevailed. Daniel acknowledged the humility gained through accepting responsibility, and Lillian expressed gratitude for the family she knew as constant and supportive. Their conversation carried warmth and sincerity, emphasizing the importance of connection over circumstance, and the sense of belonging within the room affirmed how far they had come together. As night settled and the household quieted, each of them carried forward an awareness that happiness does not arise from perfection but from commitments sustained over time. Their journey demonstrated that doubt can yield to truth, and that reconciliation guided by empathy can transform separate lives into shared purpose. The future remained unwritten, yet they faced it with confidence shaped by experience, knowing that whatever awaited would be met with unity, compassion, and understanding built through years of patience and care. This story reflects on the power of truth and how easily doubt can distance people if it is not confronted. The author intended to show that life-changing encounters are rarely accidental and that responsibility toward loved ones begins with the willingness to listen and accept reality, even when it disrupts familiar expectations. Megan represents resilience and dignity, Lillian symbolizes hope and sincerity, and Daniel embodies the journey of personal growth through which one learns the true value of family. The narrative emphasizes that love, trust, and the willingness to change can restore connections that once seemed impossible. This story is entirely fictional and created by the author of the channel. Any resemblance to real people is purely coincidental.